Bonjour à tous, bienvenue à Wein am Limit. C'est la première fois que je parle français sur ma vidéo web show. Bienvenue Peter Müller, il est le chef sommelier à Bergisch Gladbach.
Je ne comprends pas et ça m'est égal.
Ok, tu parles français?
Non, juste un petit peu.
Mais notre...
Ich spreche in Französisch.
Notre visiteur est franco-canadien. Il est des Canadiens
Québécois.
Québec, Niagara. C'est Francois Morissette. Morissette? Okay. And now we can change into English, much better. Also, erstmal herzlich willkommen, liebe Freunde, liebe Walinauten. Schön, dass ihr wieder dabei seid zu Mehr Spaß im Glas. Neben mir ist Peter Müller, seines Zeichens Chef Sommelier in Bergisch Gladbach bei
Nils
Henkel, ehemals Dieter Müller, da kennen immer noch viele daher. Und neben mir aus Kanada heute ein Winzer, auf den ich mich sehr gefreut habe, weil es eine sehr interessante Geschichte ist. Francois Morissette. So, jetzt haben wir das auf Deutsch gemacht, jetzt machen wir es auf Englisch, weil jetzt müssen wir ein bisschen schauen hier. Du sprichst Deutsch? Nix. Okay, dann now we change into English. Yes, thanks for reaching out. And
Thanks you for having me.
Canada, come on. I mean, Canada, everybody thinks of Canada as ice wine. What's happening in Canada? Canada.
Yeah. If anything.
If anything, yes.
So, yes, we are known for ice wine, clearly, because it does get cold, and we do have the proper type of temperature every winter. I don't know if there's been exception. I haven't been in Canada for long enough, but for the time I've been there, it's always cold enough. So basically the law requires that you go at 8 degrees below at least once. And so therefore you can harvest the grapes that are hanging on the vines, contained by nets. So for that particular reason, yes, we are very well known for ice wine, but as you will taste today, we also make wines that are not ice wine.
Yeah. But for how many years is that?
Viticulture in Canada, and I'm not the best person again because I've not been there long enough, but my understanding is that viticulture, give or take, is about 35, 40 years. There's some plants that are 40 years old. But there's been projects I heard before in the 50s, but to say that we grow vinifera type grapes, that would be about 40-ish years old.
So that's a real recent story. So
yeah.
Now your wines were planted in 1999.
The vineyard I operate from was planted in 1999 by a previous owner.
Okay.
That has nothing to do with Pearl Morissette, which is the partnership of Mel Pearl, my financial partner, and myself, Francois Morissette. It's a very easy contraction of two family names.
But here in Europe we established vineyards, let's say, over hundreds of years, and now you're in Canada. And
yes.
why do you plant at that plot? I mean, what kind of imagination is that?
What is a very good question, because we don't know. As I'm going to refer to Burgundy, where I've done 8 vintages.
You have been studying 8 vintages.
Yes, we know in Burgundy, among other things, they inherited in certain parts of Burgundy the patient work of monks, like vinifying every year and finding out through one grape varietal that this little place here was different than this other one on the other side of a road because there's been a fraction in the ground underneath or something like that. We don't have that, clearly. Agriculture in where I am in Niagara Peninsula, Ontario, is at the most 200 years. The first settlers to farm came about 200 years ago. And obviously they did not farm monoculture or grapes. They farm to eat. So I don't know when the first grapes for juice or consumption was planted, but as I mentioned before, the oldest grapes vinifera that are planted today are about 40 years old. So our viticulture as a whole is younger than many vineyards in Europe. But our soils are a lot younger. We have a real biodiversity in Canada. We have not selected every single plant that is around us. And the soils have not been planted and farmed for so many years. And they were farmed mainly for agricultural means. And accordingly, we fight vigor all the time. We have a lot of life in our soils.
How's your climate? How can someone imagine? Is that more continental or is that more... Well, in the winter it gets obviously very cold, but...
our climate is very extreme in Canada. As a farmer, as a vigneron, I said it to Andrew Jefford, who came to visit, and he even said it in decanter. He says this. I made apparently a glass rattling vehement comment about the climate, saying that it is the dominant terroir element of where we live, because it is true that I've done 7 vintages there so far, and every year is entirely different or very different than the year before. And as a farmer, it makes things interesting, challenging, let's put it this way. Every year you...
Francois put it in the best way, just in one word, it's hell.
Okay, so Peter, now how do you guys link to each other? Because now the wine we're tasting here, at first, maybe you can just show it. This is Pearl Morissette. This is the Black Ball Cuvée Barrique.
100% Riesling.
100% Riesling. This is the wine you introduced me to when I was visiting your place. Now we're sitting here, and I was stunned by this wine.
I love this stuff. And this is, I mean, this is something that needs to be mentioned. This is not Canada, but this is just unique. I was in Canada last summer in first order to visit my woman, who's living there at the moment. And of course, while I was at it, I thought to myself, well, we need to see some wineries, and got in touch with a good friend who works there as a sommelier, and he gave me just a few addresses. We've been tasting a lot of wines, went to quite a few wineries to visit, and there was a good handful of wineries that really impressed me, and there were 3 that really got to me. And
one of
Francois was definitely one of them.
Yeah.
When we got there, we got to the place, it was just, well, we flicked a switch and we got along pretty well, and the way he sees things and approaches nature in its entirety, but especially wine, just really interested me, because where I come from, gastronomy, the kind of work we do in the kitchen, in the service, and the kind of work, the vigneron, as you say it, the best way, it's all about loving detail and always fighting for the best, and really fighting in a good way.
And he's one. He's one of them. He's a fighter.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about this wine. I mean, first of all, the absence of oak. It says barrique, but there is. I can't smell it really. It's maybe it's too cold in here, but
no. This is on purpose. So basically, in Canada, most of the Rieslings that are made today are, to my understanding, trying to imitate a little bit what's being done in the Moselle. I think that was the model, and I think it's a pretty good model to have. Accordingly, when I came to Canada, I never made Riesling before, because I was in Burgundy. Burgundy is not notoriously known for its Riesling. And when I asked people, how should I do this? They said, you put it in a stainless steel tank, you put yeast to control it, to ferment very cold, and you do as cold as you can. And I don't I don't use a selected yeast, I only work with indigenous. So anyway, I did my first cuvée in a stainless steel, and with indigenous yeast as cold as I could. And I liked it. I have to say it was quite interesting, but I did not like. I don't like residual sugar unless you have 14 grams of acid to offset, or when it makes sense.
This is bone dry here, by the way.
Yeah,
this is bone dry, fruit driven, but not fruit primarily fruit driven. But there is a lot of fruit in here, more like citrus and lime peel, more fresher style. Yeah.
And so the idea for me was that there was no reason to leave residual sugar, so I decided to ferment it dry. And in Canada, off and on, during the primary fermentation, the malolactic would be triggered. So because I don't intervene on the winemaking, it did its malo. And in 2011, I decided that I was going to push the envelope a little bit of the textural context of the wine. So I took 3 old barrels, Burgundy size, but they were 8 years of age.
Okay, so used oak.
Yeah, no oak taste. I didn't want that.
I read somewhere in a wine blog, the Wine Anorak. I mean, I will also link that up. I read you don't like makeup. That's where I read.
Does it show this morning? And I like this so much I like the texture and what it did in mid-mouth so much that in 2012 I decided to ferment everything in the Alsatian foudre. So I called a guy in Alsace and I asked him to get me old food, and he got me 2 food of 60 years of age. And in 2013 I now have 6 of them. and I do all the Rieslings in Foudre right now.
But this is really what I like about it, because it's like, this is like a documentary to me. It's bone dry, it's crystal clear, it has a great wide complexity of aroma. You have the citrus, you have next to it you have a lot of herbaceous notes, you have brown apple, and you have a length to the wine that is not one that you clearly go, oh okay, this is slate, oh okay, granite or something, but it's just there. And
it's a wine which is really outside of the box, or outside of the comfort zone, probably many people have, because also it's very consequently made because it's so dry. Probably, what people in Canada, what do they like it, or how do they refer? Because this forces you. This is a wine which is challenging.
It is not. It lacks reference, I suppose, on the world scale. It's not tasting like Alsatian. It's not tasting like a German. It's not tasting like Austrian. Although,
which is good. That's Canada.
But this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make Canadian wines.
Okay.
And there will be some time compared, because we have our own reference, obviously. And if I did to go and study in Burgundy, there's a reason for it. But ultimately, my own interest is to make Canadian wines and develop slowly a Canadian identity, which I largely don't know what it is yet, because I've only done it for 7 years, which is baby footings.
I like these babies.
So now we're having next wine. I mean, you have Pinot Noir Chardonnay, which we leave out, and there is a place in France where you can buy these wines. We will also link it up. Your friend in Reims, who's importing the wine, because unfortunately this wine is not sold in Germany. So Paul Morissette, and there's a Cabernet Franc 2010, 13.7 alcohol.
This one has 11.7.
Yeah, okay, this is 11.7. So Cabernet Franc, the Loire grape variety, which is kind of early ripening and develops.
We do have in Canada it's very interesting, because I have some planted with a vineyard that I inherited, as I mentioned to you before. The one that was planted in '99, and at the beginning, as a Burgundy trained farmer, often what happens with the Cabernet Franc is that the leaves will fall before it's fully ripe because of the first frost. We often don't have this little frost that will just kill the leaves or just precipitate them to the ground. And as a Burgundy 10 grower, I was like, I'm not going to touch this. It's only going to ripen out of desiccation. And then I did some research, and I found out that there's an enzymatic relationship between the plant and the grapes. So I said, I'm going to give it a go. In 2010, I harvested it for the first time, which is the one you're drinking. And I have to say, I was quite impressed with the fruit quality and the depth and at the same time, the elegance that these wines can convey. And I've done it 4 years at this point. And Cabernet Franc in Niagara is very, very well suited.
It's an unfiltered wine here. No? There's a lot of grip. There's a lot of flesh to the bone here.
I put nothing in the wine but the minimal amount of sulfur.
What I also think from the flavors, that you get a lot of that kind of dried tomato kind of flavor.
You have a spiciness to it.
Very herbaceous kind of, a lot of herbs, dried herbs kind of.
Yeah, bit of forest floor, and but then on the palate it's totally sharp, and
I mean, it does have the varietal character, but there is also, there's no reference point to this wine. Not that I can imagine to this wine. I've never had it before, I have to say. This is like something new. It's groundbreaking. Yeah. What do you say? What do you say about this wine?
Great.
Aline, what do you think? Yeah. Do you only say that because we're sitting here, or you really like it? What do you like about it? That's Aline. She's also sommelier. You won't see her, but she's beautiful. I can tell you guys.
And she's blushing now.
And she's blushing a little bit. No, but Aline, what do you like about this wine?
Trying to imagine the wine.
She's your commis sommelier, no? You're working together.
She's my accomplice.
Yeah, accomplice. That's much better. Yeah.
This is a better gentleman way of putting it.
Working together. And?
It's a little bit spicy.
Spicy, yeah. Yeah, I think so too. It's very spicy, kind of. Yeah.
We do have a lot of spices in Canada in our wines.
Yeah, Gabas, what you say?
Yeah, it's the same. It's the fruit and the spices in it. It's great.
It's just so the ladies like it. So you got already to that point. Okay. So Cabernet Franc is a grape variety which is suitable, and from the results,
because we often don't have these very these warm and humid end of season. And the Cabernet Franc seems to very much like this late humidity. That the Pinot doesn't like quite as much. So was a very nice discovery for me, Cabernet Franc, and I'm finding myself in saying this, but it may be the red grape rattle of excellence that we can be playing with in Niagara.
I mean, if you think of what Canada, a lot of people have in mind for Canada, this is unexpected. I mean, that's and also the red wine, which has a lot of grip. It's a lot of flesh to the bone. You know, it's nothing thin, nothing technically. This is a soul wine to me.
I think if you pour this to a group of renowned vintners and somms, no one knows where the hell to put it.
Fabrice was pouring it in France, my import in France, and he poured it blind, and people just didn't have a clue where they were. But the thing is, like Niagara, it's Canada, yes, it's cold this winter, but it's a mezzoclimate. And the reason why we can plant vinifera grapes is because there's Lake Ontario. That doesn't freeze. It's a very deep lake. And there's a little band of land between Lake Ontario and Lake Erie to the south, and that little band of land is where we are. And the proximity to the fact that it's between two lakes creates a mezzoclimate, which allows us in certain portion of it to grow grapes. But in the summertime, it is hot.
So it's
we
more
do have more growing degree days in Niagara than Burgundy, than Loire. So just to give you an example, we can be at 13 to 16 more hundred growing degree days in a year, which is huge. So we do have always ripe fruit. But because we're a cool region as well, we always have this beautiful acidity in support. I've never reacidified any of my wines.
Well, it's natural.
Yeah, and this is a pH 3, 8 and more, and you still have the acidity in support. And that is the beauty of Niagara. It's the cool and the ripe,
and
always
do you have
combined.
cold nights, hot days, or no?
The nights can be, no, we don't have the diurnal shift as they have in Sonoma Coast, for example, where I'm also growing grapes. No, the nights can be warm, actually. It's not such a thing as a set climate. And that's the beauty of it also. Every year, it brings new information. Some years we'll have cooler nights. Some years it will just be warm all across. Some years it will be bone dry and hot. Some years it will be humid, tropical, like you will hear life growing, you will have leaves growing out of your ears, type of thing. Like 2010 was like that. And like sheets of rain falling on you where you don't see your hand, and you go like, I just finished spraying, type of thing. It always, 11 was very compromised, late spring, wet, dry summer, wet, tornado tail. Every year is different.
Sounds like a challenge to me.
Yeah, but
how are we on the time? Okay. So we're just about to finish, guys. One thing about Canada. What can we expect from you for the future? What is the next step?
Well, I like, as you may have appeared in the conversation we had, I like exploring. I like understanding. I like asking questions. What is going to come out of my interpretation of Canada? I have some tracks on which I am. After 7 years, I'm feeling confident about a little foundation, but I'm discovering favorably more every year. Like I'm exploring more and more with different kind of medias. We use cement, we use quivers, we use all sorts of things to try to understand what Canada will be, or what it is, what it can deliver. But as to say what is going to be, I would like for it to be Canadian wine and not compared to anything else. It should be acknowledged as being Canada, Ontario at least.
Cool. Peter?
I just keep being curious because it gets me to this, and this gets me to this, and this gets me to great conversations and meeting people. I just bloody love my profession.
That's your work. I say thank you for watching this, and sharing is caring, and we see you at Wein am Limit.
Merci beaucoup.
Bye-bye.
Au revoir.